This is Bryan Gold with Abode Real Estate, and we're doing something different today. We're going to do a Facebook Live video. To my right is Jason Wiggill of Access Title and JW Law Firm. He's one of my premier partners that I work with during most of my real estate transactions. He also happens to be one of my favorite South Africans behind Nelson Mandela.
One of your, oh, okay.
Behind Nelson Mandela.
Okay. Fair enough.
So anyway, we are here today. We're going to give you a little...
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Sorry, I'm doing a little talking here.
No, of course. No, please.
So we are here today for an interactive between you and me, not between you guys, because we don't see the camera right now. We don't see behind what's going on Facebook. But you may comment, you may ask questions, we can answer them later. Jason can answer them, I can answer them. We're going to go through what Jason does as a title company, as a law firm, for my buyers and my sellers, why we work so well together, and just go through the process and ask some questions. Yeah. We're going to freestyle this one because this is our first time.
Legitimately. Off the top of the head, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I get a buyer or a seller, and I hand them off to you. Tell me a little bit about your firm and the process and what goes into it and why you do so well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, first step in any real estate transaction from our perspective, and there's a lot that goes into it obviously prior to the execution of the contract. But when we receive an executed contract, the first thing that we do, whether I'm representing the seller through the law firm or whether we're doing the closing through the title, Access Title, the first thing we do is we look at the contract. We do a basic triage. We look at the contract, make sure that everything makes sense, that we understand all the time periods and contingencies. It's really important to kind of know what you're dealing with, how long you have until the time of closing to get everything done. Because at Access Title, we want to make sure that we are not being waited on by all other parties. If there's a lender, we want to make sure that we're done so that when they get that clear to close, we can go ahead and close it. So the first thing again that we do is look at the contract, and we determine what those dates are, those important dates, those essential dates. We also want to see who's paying what in the transaction. So in the standard FAR-BAR contract, paragraph 9 of the contract.
Can you go back FAR-BAR, because this audience doesn't know what FAR-BAR is.
Sure, no problem. So what it is, it's a standard contract that has been created for kind of just for ease of use. And it was created by attorneys and real estate agents and real estate professionals. And that's what's commonly used in our industry, just to kind of create a somewhat uniform approach to the creation of the contract. So it definitely has its benefits. It also has its negatives, which we can speak about at another time. The benefits of it is that it's kind of just everybody knows what they're dealing with.
Right.
So for example, now I reference paragraph 9. If you go and pick up most contracts, that you'll see paragraph 9 has to deal with who pays for what closing costs.
And the reason why I just brought that up is I just don't want to use any jargon that the audience wouldn't understand.
No, absolutely.
So.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So what we do is we make sure that we understand what costs the seller is paying for, and what closing costs the buyer is paying for. And then immediately what we'll do is we'll create a preliminary closing disclosure. While there's still going to be, every transaction's fluid, so there's going to be changes all the way up until closing, especially if there's a loan involved. But what we do is we like to be as transparent as possible and as communicative as possible to the client, so that they know what they're dealing with. Because I think
one of the things that Jason does for me and his firm does when I do work with a buyer or seller is they give me a timeline, so I know like how long the inspection period is for and how long the loan commitment period is for. And these things probably don't make a lot of sense to you, but these can make or break a transaction. If you miss one of these dates, then you could potentially lose your deposit as a buyer. Or you could be stuck in a situation if you're a seller. So you want to act quickly, and you want to have somebody like Jason with Access Title that's going to really be on top of things. And that's the thing, I get a call from him, hey, this date's coming up, what are we going to do? And that really helps with my buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's super important, and you're 100% right. There is, there's some financial exposure to the buyer because that deposit, which first page of the contract, it'll state what the deposit is, the earnest money deposit, and when it has to be put into escrow. That deposit is held by the escrow agent, obviously as just a sign of good faith to the seller, and also used as security for the seller so that they have confidence in the transaction actually being fulfilled. But it's extremely important to be mindful of those dates. So that triage period of the contract is absolutely crucial as we open up the file, create that timeline, communicate with all parties involved, and then having a good relationship like we do between title company, law firm, and real estate agent is of the utmost importance because of that ease of communication.
Right.
We can, I can get on the phone and say, hey, Bryan, heads up, this is going on, and vice versa. So it's definitely super, super important.
Like, we've dealt with some difficult situations where we had to communicate back and forth and figure out what the next steps are. So as a real estate agent, I'm not familiar with all the legal stuff. I'm familiar with what's in the contract and the dates and so forth. So when something happens, I turn to Jason and I say, hey, what do I do here? Who do I call? I mean, we're dealing with a couple situations right now where I need your expertise, opinion, and to get us through.
Yeah, and we figure them out.
We do. Well, for the most part, I mean, we figure them out if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, real estate transactions, they can seem like they're going perfect, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
Like it could just be, it can blow up in your face. So we do our best to prepare that and make sure that they go through. Yeah. So I guess the buyer usually picks the title company.
Yes.
In Broward County, right?
That's a good point. In that same paragraph, in paragraph 9, and I'm trying to be, I know I don't want to bore the audience to death because there's a lot of kind of, like you said, there's a lot of technical terms and jargon that I want to try and avoid, but this is an important, I think, point to note. In paragraph 9 of that contract, where it specifies who pays for what, it'll show you who selects the closing agent. So in Broward County and Miami-Dade County, for the most part, it's common that the buyer will select the closing agent. In Palm Beach, the default, and I say default for lack of a better word because every contract is negotiable, the seller selects the closing agent. So
and so when the buyer, so tell maybe what should a buyer look for in a title agency as far as when they're selecting what red flags should they look for? Maybe you can tell us.
That's a great question. I'll answer the question and then ask the same of you with regards to somebody that's looking for a good real estate agent.
Sure.
So to answer that question, it's there is no substitute for experience. So at Access Title, we have a tremendous amount of experience. We're attorney owned, attorney operated. So we know the ins and outs from a legal standpoint and from an operational standpoint. So, having the ability to just rely on the expertise of your title company without being concerned about whether or not they know what they're doing and whether or not they know how to navigate through the complexities of a real estate transaction is extremely important. So, by no means will I ever speak badly about other title companies because there are really good title companies out there. But my encouragement would be to make sure that that whoever you're using as a closing agent, that they have they have that experience because again, there's no substitute for it. You need to make sure that that you're dealing with somebody that's seen it all, because no two transactions are ever the same, and I'm sure you can attest to that.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had some deals where the other the title agent that was representing the buyer, because you represent my sellers as well. Yeah. The title agent that was representing the buyer was just unaware of certain things, and it slowed the process. So it can make or break a transaction. Same with a lender, and we're going to talk to a lender next month. Yeah. But these are all things. Yeah. As far as
I'll ask you the same question.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So when somebody's looking to engage with a real estate professional, real estate agent, there's so many agents out there. What sets you apart? Because before you answer that question, I can attest to the efficiency of your process, but simply because I'm getting a lot of transactions.
Right.
You're clearly getting these closed pretty quickly. So I'd be interested to know kind of what process you implement in order to, what's your recipe for success, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I've talked to this, I've spoken about this on Facebook before, but I think the truth is when you're looking for a realtor, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you've got to look for somebody, number one, same as your industry, with experience.
Yeah.
But number two, it's got to be somebody who's realistic with you, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're a buyer or a seller, you know, a buyer needs to what my job is for buyers is to narrow down the field. Like if they're over here, I'm here to narrow down what they're looking for, because it's got to be manageable. You can't tell me you want a house in Pembroke Pines and possibly East Fort Lauderdale. It just you got to start somewhere, right? And I get a lot of those, and I try and tell people we got to narrow this down. So let's go drive around. Let's look at different areas. Go drive around. Take your time. Figure out where you want to be. We'll start somewhere. If it doesn't work for you, great. We'll go look somewhere else. I'm here for the process.
Yeah.
I'm not here to decide for you. But literally, that's like 10 to 20% of the buyer representing a buyer is just helping them find the area and property.
Yeah.
The other 60% is going through the transaction and dealing with all the little things. Negotiating is key. And you know, when you negotiate a property representing a buyer, you have to use facts to. You have to use recent sales to. And you use those facts to substantiate your offer. You can't just throw out an offer based on emotion. And then, you know, so 60% is going through, so 20% is finding the property, 60% is doing the contract and everything. And then the other 20, make sure I got it right, that's 100%. The other 20%, the other 20% is closing the deal, you know, making sure. So
because there's a lot of things. The real estate transactions have a tendency to have quite a few bumps in the road, and that's not abnormal. So
and for a seller, which is what, you know, I go after a lot of sellers. Like one thing that I do differently than a lot of other agents is I go after sellers. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I prospect to sellers that weren't able to sell their properties before with other agents. I mean, we're closing on a deal where condo that we're closing on where they listed their property with different agents like 4 or 5 times and they couldn't sell. So what I do is I just kind of present myself and I say, hey, look, let's figure out what went wrong here. Why did you not sell? And everybody, I'm sure on your end, you're thinking it's price, always price. Yes, it is price a lot, but most of the time it's pricing mixed with marketing. The problem is that when an agent lists a property, like let's say I list a property and the seller wants me to list it for higher than I know that it's like much higher than I know that it's worth. Human nature, I'm not going to work as hard, and I see it all the time. These agents, they take listings. They know that the more listings they get, they're going to get more. They're going to get other listings, because how do agents sell their sells? They're like, I have more listings. Which can be good, can be bad. It depends on how many they sell. So these agents aren't marketing these properties because they're not excited to, because they know that these buyers are going to look at other properties that are priced better. So we have to be realistic. Now, I lose listings because I lost a listing. I'll be honest with Facebook here. Hi, Facebook, I'm going to be honest with you. I lost a listing about a month ago because I told the person that his property was worth $675. I looked on the MLS recently. He has it listed for $725 right now. You know, that's $50,000 more. That's less buyers that are going to see it. And the agent that he has listing his property, the pictures, they're not professional photos. I mean, that's number one. The agent isn't working hard, right? They know that the property's listed too high, and they're just waiting for the price lower. Am I talking too much?
No, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Good.
And you're being honest with Facebook. And
I am, Facebook needs some honesty these days. All I see are ads with like people putting on weird stuff. Anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, Jason, so anything else that you think that you could say maybe separates you from other title companies and real law firms?
Yeah, I mean, aside from what I've already kind of spoken about, the experience, that knowledge base is obviously essential. From a title perspective, Access Titles, the fact that we're attorney owned, we're able to troubleshoot situations as they come up, and then we have I believe 3 title agents within the firm too.
Mm-hmm.
So even those who aren't attorneys are tremendously experienced with
Mm-hmm.
decades and decades of experience in the industry. So that's what sets us apart for sure. And then from the law firm side, I did want to mention that, and I think this is something that's commonly misunderstood, or I think a lot of people don't even realize it, is that if in a contract the buyer selects who the title company is, the seller, the seller. So let's take for example in Broward County, where that's kind of tends to be the default,
Mm-hmm.
where the buyer selects the title company.
Mm-hmm.
The seller does not have to use that title company that's being selected by the buyer,
And shouldn't.
and it's one of those things. I don't want to say it shouldn't.
Right.
If you ask my personal opinion, yes, I think that it's tremendously advantageous for that seller to engage their own attorney, because and so I represent a lot of sellers, and you send me a lot of transactions where you've taken a listing, you're under contract now, you deliver the contract to me. Now I work specifically with your seller.
Mm-hmm.
I don't represent the transaction,
Mm-hmm.
as I would if I was doing a transaction through Access Title, because the title company represents the transaction as a whole, not one individual party.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm representing the seller through the law firm, I'm specifically representing their interests. So this is tremendously beneficial. So 2 points on that. The first is, for the most part, the approximate cost is the same as if you use the buyer.
Oh wait, we're still here. We're still here.
All
Okay.
right, awesome. So
Let me double check that. I guess you bring them on the camera. Oh, there's people watching.
Oh,
I can wave at people.
That's cool.
Wave.
Hi, people.
Wave. Okay, we're still
I
going.
was starting to think that I was speaking to myself. So as I was saying, I don't remember exactly where I was, but I think I was.
You were talking about that you can look at costs with a.
That's
seller.
exactly those 2 points. Thank you. Thank you for that's active listening. I appreciate that. That's really good. So the 2 points that I would want to make about that seller representation is, the first is approximate cost is the same as if you just use the title company selected by the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I step in and represent the seller specifically, and I interact with the buyer's title company to make sure that they're not charging my seller, my client, any of the costs that they would have.
Or acting the fool, because there's been a couple that have been acting the fool.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does is so it kind of just keeps them accountable. And I'm not accusing any title companies of being sneaky, and you know
who you are.
He is. So he's saying it for me. But a lot of the times there's some costs that aren't they're not necessarily conspicuous on the closing statement.
Right.
So because I know where to look, I make sure that the seller is not being overcharged,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not understanding of exactly what they're being charged for. So I make sure that the seller is taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm representing the seller specifically.
And I can also speak to how helpful that is to me, because, like, if there's like a little issue,
Yeah.
if I can tell my seller, I can say, hey, look, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, we have a little issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you talk to Jason, because it's a little out of my realm. Now, if I send him to the attorney at the title company,
Yeah.
where the money's being held and also represents the buyer,
Yeah.
it's a little strange, right? So having you
Yeah.
is a great resource to
Yeah.
to kind of,
Yeah.
they feel you're being they not only feel like they're being represented, they are.
Well, they are being represented, and that's exactly right. You know, there's nothing wrong with using the title company that the buyer selected in this instance.
That's the wrong thing.
There's no, well, unless it's Access Title. Then
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you just have to understand that the representation is more the representation of the transaction as the title company. So they don't represent the buyer individually or the seller individually, even though they're selected by the buyer. We're just representing the success of the transaction. Whereas, a seller representative, an attorney, and you have to be an attorney to do to represent a seller. It's an attorney-client relationship. That is specific and in-depth, personalized representation of the client. And there's no kind of it's a matter of 100% making sure that the seller is taken care of, and it's highly beneficial, especially, and it's a no-brainer to be completely honest with you, because the approximate cost again is similar.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna charge my fee, but that title company is not gonna charge what they would have ordinarily charged the seller. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna represent the seller, prepare all their documents, and just facilitate the transaction from a legal perspective.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything that we missed as far as just kind of chatting right now? We covered everything.
I think we could probably speak for 2 weeks.
Let's talk about trusts now.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd love to. No, genuinely, the process is extremely. It's a tedious process going through title, and you want somebody that you want a title company and a law firm, a title attorney that you know has their eyes on the details. So our process of processing through the commitments, satisfying requirements, which is essentially, you know, in layman's term, we need to satisfy a list of requirements in order to be able to issue title insurance and closing the transaction. So we have the ability to do that, no matter how complex that requirement is. If it's possible, we'll get it done.
And when I first started this video, I was a little nervous. I don't know why, you know, it's just this is the longest video I've done. Now I feel very comfortable, so.
Good, so does that mean the real questions are coming?
No. I think we've covered it as much as we can cover right now, but for the.
Is there anything that you would like to?
No, you know what, I think I cover it a lot when I just kind of complain in the camera, because that's my shtick, right, like I just complain in the camera. So, what I think is, well, Jason and I we're in a referral group together, so that's how we know each other. Yeah. And you joined like a year ago or what?
You know, it's not even a year ago. Yeah.
So yeah, we developed a really good, strong relationship. I recommend that most of my buyers and sellers speak to him, and everybody comes back to me and they're like, I feel really comfortable with this guy. And
that's good.
That's kind of what you need as a realtor. You need a good network, and I've got it. I'm building it. Jason's got a great network. So if anybody needs any, you know, if they're thinking about buying or selling, if they want to talk to an attorney, he'd be willing to talk to you beforehand.
I'm absolutely happy to. Yeah.
And just let you know what to expect, because fear of the unknown is what a lot of people, you know, are you know, when it comes to a real estate transaction, that's what a lot of people experience, and we're here to make the experience better. Yeah. Now, last question, Jason.